thanks so much for joining us today. I'm really excited to be here. We're going to be talking about integrating AWS and Agentforce with platform events. So let's kick things off. Of course, we got to talk about forward-looking statements. So I want to remind anybody that if they're going to be making any purchasing decisions, they should base those decisions on what's currently available in market and not any items that we might be talking about that are on a roadmap, because our roadmap is subject to change. I'm Tyson Reed, I'm a Director of Product Management at Salesforce. I'm delighted to be joined by Shtej, who is a Senior Partner Solutions. I got that right?
Yeah, you got it.
All right. So a Senior Partner Solutions Architect at AWS. We've been working together on the Salesforce AWS partnership for a few years now. And we're really excited to talk a little bit about kind of how all of this partnership is playing in to the work that's going on with Agentforce today. So I'll start things off by just asking, who's heard of Agentforce? Is that ringing any bells? I'm seeing some nodding. This is good, great. So for folks that aren't familiar, Agentforce is all about how we're bringing together humans, agents, data, and CRM, right? We're trying to really create dynamic, fantastic, connected experiences that bring together all of these different parts of the Salesforce platform. And we're layering on what we're doing within Salesforce and Agentforce with what's going on in the industry with AWS. So why don't you explain a little bit about some of the work that we've been doing in our partnership?
Yeah, so the last couple of years we've been working really hard to make it easy for you developers to connect AWS and Salesforce together. We have a few different ways. You can see that screenshot on the left, but now you can access AWS data stores like RDS, S3, Redshift, all of these directly from Salesforce without really having to worry about authentication, mappings, or any of those things. We've done this synchronously, asynchronously, without copying data, zero copy, zero ATL, you name it. On the right, you can see new intelligent applications that we're building together, and there's a lot of work we're doing there with different industry clouds like Health Cloud, Financial Service Cloud, Commerce Cloud. So excited to see what you all do with all these integrations that we've built.
So I think the big take home is just that there's been a tremendous amount of work that's been going between the two companies to really help people accelerate their development, right? And create better connected experiences, no matter what the industry is that you're working in. And today what we're going to be doing is kind of looking at like, great, how does that play into Agentforce and specifically eventing? And why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the work that we've done, just what our options and flavors look like for integrating Agentforce?
Yeah, absolutely. And before we kind of talk deeper in eventing and the capabilities there, let's talk about some other ways that you can integrate right now. So in Data Cloud and Agentforce now, you can bring your own models from AWS, both LLM models and other models with SageMaker into Salesforce. So you have your choice now what models to use, and not just Salesforce models, but other models. And it could be hosted anywhere, Salesforce or AWS. You obviously have MuleSoft that's been around for a long time to connect a lot of different sources of data together. And then you can now invoke AWS services directly from Agentforce, both in an asynchronous way and a synchronous way. And today we'll focus on event-driven integrations using the two event buses on both sides, platform events, change data capture, as well as Event Bridge, and how you can maybe call downstream services on the AWS side, like Bedrock agents from Agentforce. So very excited to show you that. Key things to remember there, use these integrations for asynchronous workflows. There are other patterns for synchronous workflows, or headless and autonomous use cases. And specifically today we'll talk about multi-agent interaction, but you can use Event Relay for a lot of other use cases where Agentforce calls a downstream system that doesn't have to be another agent.
Absolutely. So kind of starting to segue into event-driven integration. When we're talking about event-driven integration, we're really thinking about how we can connect systems asynchronously, right? And the reason that we're interested in doing that is because when you do asynchronous integrations, you're able to get a lot of benefits by decoupling these systems. You're able to operate them independently. You get benefits in terms of resilience by having those systems be decoupled. You're able to get great benefits by being able to communicate in near real time. These are very performant integrations that work at very high scale. And you're also able to make sure that your applications aren't just polling one another constantly. You're not trying to refresh data all the time. You're able to get notifications when data changes. And it's really been an incredibly durable pattern that we've seen lots and lots of customers use. And internally within Salesforce, we use event-driven architectures very often to build new features. So For folks that aren't familiar with it as a pattern, I'd love to tell you more. We can talk afterwards, but just that's kind of the high-level understanding of why we think about event-driven integrations, is to really get those scale benefits of decoupling your systems. Now, in terms of what this looks like, let's see, we got a clicker. Here, if you can get me to the next slide. There we go. In terms of thinking about, like, great, well, what are the tools available to us to build event-driven asynchronous architectures between Salesforce and AWS? Today, what we're really going to be focusing on is a couple different building blocks. We've got platform events, which are really that bedrock tool of being able to define what's the notification that you want to send to an external system. That's something that you can customize on your own. It's also something that Salesforce provides. We have standard Salesforce-defined events that you can consume in your applications. Real-time event monitoring is a great example of that for folks that are familiar with that product. And this is really a great tool to kind of build that connective tissue between your different services. Another option is change data capture, which is going to be syncing S-object data changes. So this is a great tool when you're trying to sync data and you're not just trying to send notifications. And then there's also Event Relay, which is a declarative connector that we built as part of the Salesforce AWS partnership. And that's been GA since, I want to say 2022. I think it went live in roughly October 2022. And what Event Relay does is it connects your Salesforce org, it connects all of the events that you've got to Amazon Event Bridge, which is essentially an orchestration tool that allows you to direct events within AWS to different services, like Lambda, to data services, like if you wanted to store events in S3. It gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of how you route events within AWS. And it also lets you send events to other destinations, right? You can send it back to Salesforce, you can send it to other third-party locations with API destinations. Anything else we should add for Amazon Event Bridge?
Yeah, I would just say you can use it as a data router pretty much, where you can get events in a scalable way from an upstream system like Salesforce and send it down to other SaaS applications. So that's a key use case that a lot of people don't explore.
Awesome. So these are kind of the basic building blocks of building event-driven architectures between Salesforce and AWS. There's other flavors of how to do this, but we'll focus on this pattern with Event Relay today. And now let's start thinking about, like, great, how does that apply to Agentforce, right? When we're trying to integrate agents, what does this mean? How do we use these tools to do that? And the exciting thing is that Agentforce fits into your eventing architectures now, today. You can build with this right now. And what this looks like is on the publishing side, agents are able to publish events via flows and triggers, right? So you can take all of those evented flows and triggers that are in your org, and you can expose them as custom actions for your agents to take advantage of. So that means that agents can now be publishing events via these flows and triggers, these custom actions that you can define. And because of the way the Salesforce Event Bus works, all of those events that the agent is publishing are going to be available for all of your subscribers. So that could be subscribers that are within Salesforce, that could be other flows, that could be other Apex, that could also be external systems, right? Things like Amazon Event Bridge that's going to be consuming via Event Relay. That could be things like other systems that you integrated with PubSub API. So the power here is that you're able to decouple what the agent is doing when they're publishing that event. They get onto the Salesforce Event Bus, and all of the other systems that are interested in subscribing to that event have it available to them. It's a similar story on the subscription side. This is a new feature that just came out where you can now have an agent respond to Apex and flows. So that means, same thing, all of the evented Apex and flows are able to invoke an agent, so that agent can take an action based off of what's coming on to the Salesforce Event Bus. With flows in particular, you can also divide those tasks into multiple agent calls if you need to. So when we're thinking about this, we've got agents that are able to publish events, we've got agents that are able to subscribe to events. There's a great demo that I can recommend that we've got linked to at the end of this presentation, where Philippe Oziel, one of our developer evangelists, has an example of an agent publishing an event that's then consumed by PubSub API. So you can see that pattern in reality, in a great demo. So kind of breaking this down, we've got all of our publishing layer of being able to publish events onto the Salesforce Event Bus with our publishing APIs that are from external sources. We're able to publish events within Salesforce via Apex and Flow. And it's a similar story on the subscription side, right? So we've got that separation of entities that are publishing events, entities that are subscribing to events. And now what we're doing is we're adding in this agentic layer, right? Agents are able to interact with all of these flows, all of these apex, and it's going to be a similar story at that API layer too. So external agents are also able to interact with the Salesforce event bus. So the take home here is that we've really got this new agent layer that's interoperating with your publishers and your subscribers. So now let's take a look at an example of what is this like, in real life? Like, how would you actually put this into a use case that would span Salesforce and AWS with Event Relay? So why don't you take us through that? What might that look like?
Sure, Tyson. So let's take a fictitious company, electric car company, Electra Motors. And in this case, Electra Motors has a large customer base. They're all motivated to save the environment, and they want to understand certain things like what is their carbon footprint, how are they helping the environment, and what Electra Motors has done is deployed an Agentforce agent right on their website to connect with their customers in a personalized way, and also create the life electrified assessment for their customers. Now, this assessment is something that is sent to them later on after their question is asked, which is why we're using, in this case, relays to build this.
And the take home here is that this is an async pattern, right? Like, somebody is not trying to be in a chat with an agent and get all of this all at once. It's a use case that lends itself to this asynchronicity, where you can decouple what's going on in the chat with the agent and some of the downstream actions that you need to have happen.
Absolutely, and so Electra is using the AWS infrastructure in this case to build this multi-agent workflow. And they're doing that using both Agentforce and Bedrock agents. In this case, the Agentforce agent is speaking to the customer and acting as a customer service agent, and taking this data, passing it downstream to the Bedrock agent. The Bedrock agent's job is to calculate the carbon footprint. All the calculations are built in to that agent. That's what that agent is trained to do. So let's quickly go over how this will come about in a real life scenario. So the first step on the very, left side is the customer goes to the website and asks that question to Agentforce. Hey, tell me what my carbon footprint is for this year so far.
And this is something that, you would want to bring in a lot of different data sources to figure out some of these questions, right? So in this example, you're trying to figure out, great, what's the car that somebody's driving? You're trying to figure out, where do they live? What's the carbon intensivity of the electrical grid that they're on? There's a lot that goes into trying to answer a pretty simple question, and that's why they're going to bring in all of the custom code that they have in AWS and a Bedrock agent to try and sort that out.
And where can that data live? You have Salesforce as the place for customer data, and then you have data coming from your car probably through IoT integrations, and that can come into a number of different systems. It can be in AWS, it can be in Salesforce. You know where you're putting your data. What we're doing is helping bring that data together. So moving on, Agentforce now will create a record when that prompt is asked, and in this case, Agentforce identifies there's a potential opportunity here. So it goes ahead and creates an opportunity record, as well as publishes an event with all of this information down through Agentforce onto AWS. Using the simplicity of Relay, where we've already set this up and authentication is all taken care of, you've set up the connection between EventBridge, which is the event bus on the AWS side, and platform event, to then send that information over to AWS. Now, EventBridge has downstream systems set up, and in this case, we've set it up with a Bedrock agent. Using Lambda, step functions, and other workflow tools that AWS provides, you're able to call this agent, which may be able to do multiple things in this case.
Absolutely.
And right now, we're asking this Bedrock agent to be specialized in calculating carbon footprint cost. Now, there could be multiple questions agents can answer, and you can have potentially not one, but many agents sitting there with an orchestration agent layer on top of it. But for simplicity, we're just showing you one agent today. When you get that answer from the Bedrock agent, it'll calculate that cost and send that back to another event bus, potentially in EventBridge. And that event bus is hooked on to a different platform event on the Salesforce side.
Yeah, exactly. So what's going on is EventBridge is able to say, hey, great, we've got the result from Bedrock. We're going to put this information into a platform event, into the payload that we find. So this is a custom platform event. And then that would get published via API destinations. So you can put that platform event back onto the Salesforce Event Bus.
And again, very simple to set up. You own both sides of the equation. You have the authentication credentials for your Salesforce org, so that's how you set up the API destination. Once this event makes it back into Salesforce, you use the newly launched subscription capabilities of Agentforce to subscribe to that event. And you can use that new other agent to go talk to that customer again, or in this case, asynchronously create a draft email and a reminder for your rep on that opportunity record that was created initially. And the next day, this rep goes into the office, has the task list, and is able to take action on it.
Yeah. So what we've got here is we've got a pattern where you're able to have a customer that starts off having a conversation with an agent. That information is collected, it's relayed over to AWS where you have a Bedrock agent that's able to really enrich that, do a lot of calculations, use a lot of compute, and potentially leverage data that you already have in AWS. And then you're able to bring that experience back into Salesforce where you can aid your customer service reps, you can aid your salespeople, and you can help them have a much more authentic, grounded conversation with a richer content that's going to engage somebody. So that's kind of the take-home that we're trying to paint, where you've got this end-to-end where agents are really helping at these different layers on both sides of the platforms.
And so just to take it away, just to go over what we just talked about, we saw how events can asynchronously power multi-agent interactions. We talked about how Agentforce can both publish and subscribe to existing events. And finally, Event Relay makes it really simple in a declarative way to extend events between Salesforce and AWS.
And again, it's the same story for getting those events back into Salesforce. You're able to use API destinations to set up that connection to publish events back to Salesforce without writing any custom code. So we're really excited about this pattern. We're going to be publishing a lot more information on it, so stay tuned for demos that we'll be posting on our YouTube channel. Stay tuned for blog posts. This is an area that we see a lot of potential in. We're really looking forward to seeing what folks are going to build with that. If you have questions, you want to learn more, we're actually going to be hanging out right over there at the Salesforce AWS partnership booth. And we would love to talk to you more about what you're planning to build, how you can fit event-driven architectures into what you're trying to deliver for your customers. And we've also got a link here that's going to give you more information about how you can get up and running with eventing, with Agentforce and the Salesforce AWS partnership. So thank you guys so much for coming today. We're really grateful for you being here, and have a fantastic TDX.
Thank you, everyone.